he said to me, he said, Dr. McIntosh, he said, I'll be kind if you be kind. I said, okay. When I went and sat down, you know what he came up and told the people? He said, I said to Dr. McIntosh, I'll be kind if you be kind. Dr. McIntosh turned his back and walked away. That's what he told the people. It was good. That was a good one. That was a good one. That was Brother Sorrell. But then we have the two brothers stand together, and we can ask any question we want to learn about these speakers. But first, we're going to have our 10-minute rebuttals. And starting off again is going to be Professor James Blake. Give him a round.
I greet you again in peace. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I kind of hope to see myself as a kind of intelligent person. And the things that Brother Milton spoke about in terms of Gadaffi, I'm not going to rebut that because those are facts, it's history, facts. I'd just like to even add that Gadaffi gave money to the Nation of Islam and black movements throughout America. And he gave money to African leaders, and he certainly was trying to build an African union. So I would not break that. I mean, in fact, he even gave $5,000, I believe, to women who gave birth. Can you imagine that? You get birth, you get $5,000. At least racists would say in America. What I will say, though, is that he was able to accomplish those things because he was in his own country, he had his own army, and he had the ability to suppress opposition. Whereas Obama, as president of the so-called greatest country in the world, would stand up before a joint session of Congress, and somebody would jump up and say, "You lie!" Right. In the midst of his speech. Right. Never happened before. If somebody got up in Libya and said that to Gadaffi, you would never see that person again. Right. It'd be gone. And this is a point. If you look at some of the things that Obama tried to achieve, not on the same great level that Gadaffi did, but certainly he was trying to achieve employment, jobs programs, healthcare, which now is under attack. They're trying to dismantle that. He was trying to do something, but his opposition was so intractable and still so intractable that anything he did, any efforts he made, he had to fight like hell to get them through. And that's why I say it takes a great champion to have a great opponent. When you have an opponent that's strong and you're able to outdo that opponent to a certain extent, that makes you stronger. And I say that Gadaffi did not have the kind of opposition and opponents that Barack Obama has today. So when you measure the greatness, you got to measure the level of opposition that you have to overcome, the challenges that you have to overcome. Now, that doesn't say that I agree with Obama's foreign policy. But like I said in the beginning, leaders have strengths and they have weaknesses. They're not perfect. And when you see a black man coming into power in white America, into a seat that no one of his kind has ever occupied, that's what you call a new frontier. That's uncharted waters. That's not having a role model. That's not having any, he's not a civil rights leader. He can't go in and say, I'm going to be like Dr. King. He's my role model. I'm going to be like Malcolm X. He's my role model. He can't do that. That's not what the job calls for. He had to come in as a black man, president of everybody in this United States. Almost said something else, but United States. That's a different challenge. You seen how the brother's hair has turned gray? You know, we probably don't know, but you know, we as black people know that his life is threatened every day. That every time you turn on the television, you see those black children run through the White House, people get so upset. You got a black family in the White House. That is mind-boggling to a lot of white folks in this country. And they don't like it. And they've shown and demonstrated that they don't like it. And whereas Gadaffi, he had opposition, but he was able to deal with his opposition. And by the way, he did have democracy because he had people's committees where people came together on a grassroots level to try to make decisions to impact on government. He did have a semblance of letting people, have their say. But ultimately, he was the number one ruler. You can say whatever you said. I always say about the president of my college. He always called these committees. Everybody can say whatever they want to say, but at the end, he does what he wants to do. And that's the way it was for Gadaffi. He can do what he wanted to do. Obama can't under this situation. So that's why I see the greatness in Obama a little different than the greatness in Gadaffi. And believe me, Gadaffi was great for all the reasons that Milton talked about. But it's a different situation here in America. Racism. In fact, Obama's presidency has acted like it's even drawn out the racism in this country more than ever before.
That's right.
It's when you change the way people have been living all of their lives and thinking all of their lives that because they're white, they're supreme. It's hard for them to accept the fact that all these hundreds of years where a white man is supreme, that you have a black man in the White House to destroy that white supremacy. It's a sickness and a disease in America that is so lethal, as we see with all the things that's happening to our people in this country. Obama can't control that. He's victim of it himself. So I have to say.
Amen.
Before I call up our next speaker, I want you to know that thanks to your generosity, you donated to Clarke House $577. Give it now for his rebuttal, Brother Milton Alamati.
Thank you. Greetings again, sisters and brothers. Professor Blake is correct. The president has accomplished much with his hands tied behind his back. At every step, they actually said it when he was elected, that as Rush Limbaugh famously said, I hope he fails. Because they've been doing their best to make sure that he fails. So Professor Blake has pointed out these limitations, and that Colonel Gadaffi did not have opposition. But I maintain that, in fact, he did have a lot of opposition, particularly from the outside corporate Western interests that wanted to revert things to the way they used to be, when they made 80% of the profit and the country got to keep only 20%. And they tried to remove his regime many times by sponsoring people within to try to get rid of him. And we had that attack in 1986 by Ronald Reagan that he lost an adopted daughter during that attack. And yes, I agree with Professor Blake. It's important to put things in context. And I think one very important context with respect to Libya is also to compare what Gadaffi did with what the other African leaders were doing. Knowing that there's a risk and there's a cost in trying to take an independent model, an independent approach, because many African leaders paid the price. Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown with the CIA involvement because he wanted to chart an independent destiny for Ghana and for African continent. Patrice Lumumba was not even given a chance in the Congo. Barely months after independence, he was killed. More recently, Thomas Sankara, also talking about the need for Africans to take advantage of their resources, control their resources. And in fact, go to the Western countries that were holding this huge loan over their heads, holding them hostage and their economies hostage, and saying, in fact, a lot of these loans you gave to dictatorial regimes that had no interest of the African people. You were dealing with them. You took a risk and gave them the loans. Why should we be responsible for this burden? And when he started talking like that, there's no surprise that he was quickly eliminated by his so-called best friend, Compaoré, who was actually working in the interest of the French and Western interests. But I absolutely agree with Professor Blake. You know, the president has to be given the credit that he deserves in operating in such a hostile, racist environment. We have to acknowledge that. Could the president in some way get us as black folk more involved in terms of agitating more and making it difficult for the establishment that ties his hands to tie our hands as well? That's worth debating. But do we need him to give us that signal? I don't think so.
No.
I think at the end of the day, we have to take control of our destiny as well, here and on the African continent. The statistics warrants it. On the continent, we cannot have a continent of so much abundance and yet so much poverty. It does not make sense. It's like you having resources in your house, but me coming over and taking control of your resources. It means it doesn't belong to you. And that's what we need to change. And even here in this country, Malcolm spoke about that. For those who are not familiar with the ballot or the bullet, please go listen to that on YouTube. And he said the same thing we're talking about. The need to control your own resources, the need to create your own jobs, not to depend on the outside world. He said in Harlem, when you complain about rundown schools, rundown housing, he says you have nobody to blame except yourselves, because you still have resources, you're spending money, but you're spending it in the wrong place, and you're allowing others to come and milk resources from your environment. That's how we need to be thinking. We can't have a situation where 50 years ago, when white unemployment was 5%, black unemployment was 10%. 50 years ago, in December 2014, white unemployment was 4.8%. Guess what black unemployment was? 11%, exactly double. Or in places like Ferguson, where white unemployment was 8%, black unemployment 17%. And then we had that one example, a police force in a predominantly black neighborhood, city, of 50 police officers having 3 black. Meaning they're in effect subsidizing the same establishment that commits tyranny and police brutality upon them. That's preposterous. We can't allow that. So when it comes to issues like that, Dr. Blake and I, we're on the same page. But I think that given the history of what Gadaffi accomplished in Libya, and given the challenge that he worked under, and the willingness, he said when the conflict started that he was going to die in Libya. And he kept his word. Because he could not imagine living in exile and watching the things that he had built, him and his colleagues, be destroyed. it would not be worth being alive. And he made that determination. And he made that sacrifice. Brutally killed. Brutally killed. But he had been inspired by the execution of Omar Mukhtar by the Italians. And that's one of the things that inspired him. So he knew that by making that sacrifice, one day in the future, another Libyan is going to be inspired as well. Thank you, Sister and Brother.
We have our resident poet here, and I don't know if he wants to perform anything for us, but if he does, we're going to call up Brother D. If you have something brief you can do for us now, Brother D. Okay. Brother D. Nubian.
Think quick, think quick. Okay. I'm gonna do something that's not mine. All right? My favorite piece to do is not by me. It's by Suleiman Al-Hadi of the Last Poets. Some of y'all might know it, on the dollar bill. And I'm thinking in terms of Gadaffi leading moves to develop our own currency in Africa, all right? I guess that would be a good time to do this piece. Can y'all hold that? Self-desires are burning like fires among those who hoard the gold, as they continue to keep the people asleep and the truth from being told. Racism and greed keep the people in need from gaining what's rightfully theirs. Cheating, stealing, and double dealing as they exploit the people's fears. Now Dow Jones owns the people's homes and all the surrounding land, buying and selling their humble dwelling in the name of a master plan. Because paper money is like a bee without honey with no stinger to back him up. And those who stole the people's gold are definitely corrupt. Credit cards, master charge, legacies of wills, real estate, stocks and bonds on coupon paper bills. Now the U.S. mints on paper prints millions every day and use the eagle for their symbol cause it's a bird of prey. Now the laurels of peace and the arrows of war are clutched very tightly in the eagle's claws, filled with greed and lust. And on the back of the dollar bill are the words, "In God we trust." But the dollar bill is their only God, and they don't even trust each other. And for a few dollars more, they would start a war to exploit some brother's mother. Then there's the pyramid that stands by itself, created by black people's knowledge and wealth. And over the pyramid hangs the devil's eye, which stole from the truth and created a lie. Now a nuit means an endless amount, stolen over the years. And coeptus means a new empire of vampire millionaires. And novus is a Latin word meaning something new. And ordo means a way of life chosen by a few. Seclurum is a word that means to take from another. Knowledge, wisdom, and understanding stolen from the brother. Roman numerals on the base of the pyramid's face tell the date they began to exist, when they established this branch of hell in 1776. Now there are 13 layers of stone on the pyramid alone, an unfinished work of art. For 33 1/3 is how the mason goes without falling apart. 13 stripes in the original shield, 13 stripes in the original shield. 13 colonies of land, 13 stripes in the original shield. Oh, sorry, okay. 13 berries and 13 leaves. 13 colonies of land grabbing thieves. 13 arrows in the eagle's claws. 67 corporations wage the devil's wars. 13 stripes on the eagle shield, and these are the symbols on the U.S. seal. Now, on the front of the dollar bill to the right of Washington's head is a small seal with the shape of a wheel with a secret that's been left unsaid. The symbols in the middle represent the riddle of the scale, the ruler, and the key. The square rule is the symbol of the craft of masonry. The scale represents Libra, the balance of the seventh sign. It also represents the just us, which you and I know is blind. The key unlocks the mystery to the secrets of the seal, so that only the governed human would know what they reveal. The four words above form the last part of the secrets of the seal, and tells how they fooled the people into thinking paper money was real. Now, Thesaur means the treasury, where they stored the gold they stole. And Amber means to punish, like the slaves they bought and sold. And Septem means the seventh, like a 1776, when the 13 devils gathered to unleash their bag of tricks. Sigil means the images they created to fool the world, like the colors on Old Glory, the flag that they unfurled. Now red's for the color of the Indian man, and white's for the ones who stole the land, and blue's for the eyes that hypnotize with the tricks and traps they sprung. And even to this very same day, they still speak with forked tongue. So the power's in the hands of the ruling class, playing God with the fate of all the math, because the people don't get any in the land of the plenty, called E pluribus unum means one out of many.
Our young people great? Yeah. Give them a round of applause. I had to control myself because anytime I see Brother D, he knows I'm not going to do it, but I always say, how you going to make the black nation rise? Brother D looks very young, but in 1979 he had a big hit called How You Gonna Make the Black Nation Rise. It's still my favorite, just as his favorite is this piece by the brother of the last poets. But he's an equal caliber, equal quality. If things were just, you know, you might not know some of these rappers' names that you know. And his name, we'd all know. But at least here in the Clarke house, we know Brother D. One more round of applause. I'm going to call both of my brothers up and ask you, if you have a question, to come right through that hallway right there and line up. And the brother here, first of all, let's have a round of applause for Brother Gilchrist, who's preserving this history for us. Here every week, gives us tapes of it. And I want you to applaud real loud downstairs. This week, Sister Adelaide, Sister Betty, Brother John, Sister Wimberly, Sister Cassandra, all of the people that you usually see around giving us some help, they're all down in Selma. But a couple of the young people that have been coming here through the years and have been developing, they've been holding it down. They're downstairs right now. I want you to applaud loud enough for them to hear it, and that's Brother Michael Bell and Sister Lenora Sharp.
Lack of attention to our political prisoners. When I saw him go to Mandela's funeral, and I realized that some of the things that Mandela did to fight for freedom for his people were much more huge than what our political prisoners do. My concern is Barack Obama not addressing our political prisoners that have been in prison 30 to 40 years.
Now, I'm not going to defend that, but I will say this, that taking it from Obama and bringing it back to us, as Milton had said earlier, I don't know if you were here, we have to.
Well, we are, so that's why I'm asking you about Obama. Okay.
Let me finish. Okay. We have to, but I would say we are not pressuring him. Okay? When we organize, listen, the thing I feel is that we criticize, we don't organize. We, as a people, voted for Barack Obama to become president twice. So did the gays. So did the Latinos. What did the gays do? They organized and pressured Obama with this marriage, equality. What did the Latinos do after voting for him? They organized and pressed him on immigration. And when he gave them something, they said it was not enough. What did we do? We voted for him, but we didn't pressure him for anything.
I have to disagree with you. There are those of us that have and are still pressuring him about our political prisoners. That's why I asked the question. I know for a fact there are those of us who have worked hard and have had political prisoners released in the last few years. Political prisoners that have been in prison for 35 years, for 44 years. Again, I'm not taking it off of Barack Obama.
Well,
And because he does receive letters, he receives phone calls that the office does. So I go back again is to what is happening. And if you can go to South Africa and praise Mandela without receiving any pressure to do it, but I'm saying to you right now, there are those of us who have addressed it, who have sent forms and letters to Barack Obama, and it's being ignored. So, we can't just keep taking it off of Barack and putting it on ourselves. There are some things that he has to take responsibility for. And no, you are wrong if you say we are not doing it. If you go get the political prisoners...
I'm going to ask you a simple question. I'm not
Yes.
saying
Okay.
you personally. Take it away from your own personal involvement.
Well, that's very
Okay?
difficult.
Let's take it away from that. I'm talking about
Okay.
our people. I'm talking about our people. Where you told me where you saw 100,000 black people in front of the White House demanding information or demanding him to address the issue of political prisoners.
I
I'm
haven't
talking
seen
about mass-
100,000, and I shouldn't have to.
No, but you have to.
No, brother, all I'm saying to you
No,
is...
you listen to me, okay? Because I want to try to respond to you as honestly as I possibly
And
can.
I'm asking you the
This
question
is
from honesty.
Okay, we live in a society of competing communities. The stronger your community, the more you get.
That's right.
The weaker your community, the less you get.
That's it.
And how do you gauge people in terms of strength and weaknesses in their particular communities? By their ability to mobilize and get out the vote that can threaten them in terms of their position. See, Obama's not Superman to do.
Nobody's
Wait a minute,
asking
let me
him to
finish.
be. Well, no, I am, but I'm not. I'm just saying that nobody's asking him to be.
You
I'm
asking
asking for
him
some
to
small
respond.
things.
I'm
Go on, and I'm
giving you a
listening to you.
formula that if we organize, massive organizing, rather than just criticizing, we can get more done.
Okay.
That's all.
Because there are those of us who have organized, and I
I'm
have
not
to.
saying, I'm sure I
Brother,
organize.
it's not
I'm talking about
just
the
me.
masses of people.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
talking
your
about the
answer
masses
for
of
me
our people.
is unsatisfactory.
It takes a lot of work to
Okay.
mobilize the masses of our
Okay,
people.
so we'll see when he has his ability to pardon people who he pardons. And he will have that ability to do that.
All right, I have to actually agree with Professor Blake. Not that there's not been organizing, but sadly, the way this country works, the political leadership don't do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. That will never happen. They have to be forced, and the way you would do that is by mass mobilization. Sadly, many people in our own communities are not aware of the plight of our political prisoners, to be frank with you. Many of our own folks are not aware. They've forgotten a lot of these political prisoners. They're not aware of a lot of the sacrifice that folks made in the 1960s, in the 1970s, the victims of COINTELPRO, many still languishing. And if we can find a way to get a mass national campaign around this, I think it might actually have some impact. I think the people that know about the condition of political prisoners, in terms of the number of people that are aware, are not as large as it should be. So we need to do that and force the president to to do the right thing, but just because he's made aware of it, that in itself is not going to be enough. He has to be pushed to do the right thing. Look at unemployment. How can we allow unemployment in the black communities to be at double at what it is in the white community, 50 years, consistent? How can we allow white police officers to continue killing young black men with impunity?
Right.
You know, obviously it's not right for them to be able to do that and get away with it. But we need to find a way to make it impossible for the president to ignore this and for the establishment to ignore this, and to make them know that there's going to be consequences unless something is done.
I say.
Brothers and sisters, I just want to interrupt for 1 second. Downstairs we have two vendors, two brothers that are selling books and tapes. Please, on your way out, support them if you can, okay? You can find some information that was valuable if you go look on those table, on that table downstairs. Thank you.
Okay. Brother Milton, I want to thank you for your information
Thank
on
you, sir.
Muammar Gadaffi. It's a lot that I did not know. And what I'm still missing, if you could help me out, how exactly did he die? What was that? How did that happen?
He was, the car that his convoy was, he had been essentially surrounded in Sirte, the city where he went to school initially, where he grew up. And after weeks and months and months of continuous bombing, the whole city was leveled, and basically he was trying to get away in a convoy. And the NATO planes pinpointed the car that he was in and hit it with a missile. And he survived that initial impact and came out with his bodyguards. But then the insurgents that were chasing after them managed to capture him, and they stuck a bayonet in his rectum, and then eventually he either bled or I think he was shot again also in the head, and that's how he died.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a lot of work to do. I really need to study.
A lot of the gruesome images are actually on YouTube.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Please,
Yes, sir.
please. Professor Blake, I want to thank you very much for your time and attention and the research you put in, as well as Milton. I want to thank you in the same vein and manner. Professor Blake, you started out when you said, what are the markers that we judge greatness by? You started out and you began with a historical perspective of Barack Obama from then until the presidency, as well as Milton did the similar concerning Colonel Muammar Gadaffi. In the vein of fairness, I want to say that in '92 I went to Libya and I was a guest of the Jamhuriya, and I witnessed much of the stuff that you were talking about that was going on in Libya.
Right.
Now, my question is that Barack Obama, I want you to tell me, is it a matter, the mark of greatness, Muammar Gaddafi being elected President of the United States is not a mark of greatness. What it is an indication of a political machine that had the influence over the populace, and he got the vote. I look at the presentation of Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi saw his state, his nation, and the plight of the working class, the masses of the people in dismal condition. He took it upon himself to make some moves that put his personal safety and security in jeopardy to change their conditions. I see that President Obama saw the plight of African people, recognized the conditions, but I'm still looking to see him make the commitment to change similar to Muammar Gaddafi. I ask myself, is it a matter of cowardice or is it a matter of siding with the philosophy and practice of white supremacy? Because you see, there are things that, as the sister said, he could be doing in terms of political prisoners, after there's so much as acknowledging the existence of such in the United States of America. And the point of President Obama and the lack of opposition, I think Milton answered that question similar to what I was going to say, so I can't get into that fire. But the idea of Obama not having the ability to stamp out his opposition, I disagree with that, because the Homeland Security Act and the Guantanamo situation, those are all expressions of oppositions to Obama's administration's policies, and they're being rounded up, American citizens, global citizens, and being headed off to prison. That's his opposition that's being silenced, so that those were. And in terms of Muammar Gadaffi, I think his campaign to unite Africa is another indication of his greatness that exceeds President Obama. Now, I voted for Obama twice because I think every African brother deserved to have a job. President Muammar Gadaffi, his position, what did he do? This brother took the creativity of his people and took the salt from the sea and created a machine that could desalinate the water and made the desert green. He did that for the people. None of that gets spoken about. And he supported African revolutionaries from the anti-imperialist and colonialist regimes all over Africa. He did that.
ANC. Right.
These are the marks of greatness that, in my view, makes President Muammar Gaddafi a much greater president than Barack Obama. And I respect them both, but I think that the mark, as Malcolm said, history will be the teller of the truth, and I think that history will lay out that Muammar Gaddafi was a greater president and leader of his people than Barack Obama is.
How y'all? Hey, Brother Stone, Brother James, Brother Milton. My name is Oscar Bryan. I have a question for each of you. For Brother Milton, he spoke about Gaddafi and his willingness to die. We haven't heard Barack with that kind of iteration. Would you feel that that might be a limitation of his unwillingness to die? I mean, the great ones have always been willing to die. We haven't heard that from Barack. Is that possibly a limitation? And for Brother James Blake, what bothers me, and some of you folks might disagree, is when Barack says things have gotten better. You just ran down all of the issues that he has gone through personally, and if you look at even the fact of black folk can spend our money in more places now than we could before, but we also have produce less than we did before. So when you speak of things have gotten better, when he says that, how does that affect you? And you can address those. Thank you.
I think, I'm not sure I got your question right. Are you asking me?
Willingness to die. When Gaddafi's willingness to die.
Right.
And Barack Obama's seemingly lack of willingness to die.
I don't know if I would characterize it that way. I think part of the reasons why Colin Powell did not run, because he said just by declaring that he was running, was opening himself up to be killed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as a black man, to presume that you could be president in the United States, and then particularly right now when we have all this outright, overt racism from establishment Republicans, I think that certainly is taking a risk too. So I didn't mean to say that I felt one leader was much more willing to die than the other.
Okay.
I felt that in the context of Libya, Gaddafi saw no purpose in living in exile and watching them ruin something he had built over 3 or 4 decades. Remember, in the beginning, they actually thought and hoped he would flee. the day after they started bombing, the British Foreign Secretary said he was on a plane to Venezuela. And he got on radio and he said, you know, this is just one proof of the propaganda and lies. I'm right here in Libya. And they never explained why they had said that he was on a plane to Venezuela, because they really did not believe. They thought he was one of those typical leaders who seizes power just for the benefit of seizing power and being in power.
Exactly.
Like the leader in Burkina Faso, who killed his supposed best friend, Sankara. What happened when people rose up? The next day he was fleeing to the Ivory Coast, right? He was there just to enrich himself, like many of the leaders we have in African countries right now. But I think Gadaffi wanted to prove that he was dedicated to what he had started to do in Libya. And there was no purpose in going and living as an exile in some other country.
Thank you, Brother Milton. Brother James?
Yeah. I didn't say that things got better. You said he said it, right?
And I just want to have that.
Well, in my remarks, I was talking about his presidency, in my opinion, brought out some of the things that have been lurking in America, white community, and it's coming to the surface. And it's almost like he's bringing out the poison to such an extent that you can't really say things have gotten better. What has gotten better is the fact when I mentioned this 9-year-old kid and how he's never seen anything or knows anything other than a black president. Psychologically, that's very powerful for our people, for our young people. And maybe the Barack Obama that we want is still 9 years old. And maybe one day he will be that 9-year-old Barack Obama that we want. You're not going to get it just on the first time around. Okay? Jackie Robinson entered the, baseball. He was the first black baseball player. And after him, a whole slew of black baseball players came into existence that were great. But he broke the color line. He made it possible. So in that sense, psychologically, the death of white supremacy, and I tell you that many of us in this room, at least my age, never even thought we'd ever have a black man in the White House. Okay, so to have a 9-year-old not even know there was ever a white man in the White House, to me is a psychological boost.
Amen.
And makes it better for us as a people.
Amen.
Can I add one point? I think one of the mistakes that many of us tend to do is that we feel because we have the first black president and he's dealing with all this racist opposition, we have to always support him regardless.
That's right.
No, I think credit should be given where credit is due.
That's right.
And when he deserves, critique, it should be offered. I think at the Black Star News, we were some of the most vocal criticism in terms of the intervention in Libya. We wrote more than 100 editorials, especially when they started targeting people that looked like us. Racist targeting, ethnic cleansing. And we wrote about that. We wrote editorials. We urged people to call the White House, call the State Department, call papers like the New York Times. We gave all the phone numbers. Asked the publishers and the editors of these big papers, why aren't they covering? Just because it doesn't fit with getting their ID. And I said, I don't believe you. I don't believe that. There's another publication that you are hosting that has not had access to their website for 3 days. When I got up, the website was back up. The particular editorial that I just told you about had been deleted. Can you imagine? That we live in a country, but now in retrospect, when we know everything that Edward Snowden has told us, now we understand what was exactly going on, at that time. But it doesn't mean that we should not criticize when in a case like this, it was warranted and valid, and look at where Libya is today.
Thank you very much.
We have 3 more questioners. We have 9 minutes. So what I'm going to ask is if you can keep your question under 30 seconds, and if the answer, the respondents can keep it under a minute or so.
Peace, family. My name is Adelia Zuniga, and my question is to both of the gentlemen, so everyone to answer it. It seems like both of you guys are Obama supporters, although you did come in presenting Muammar Gadaffi information.
I think that's a mistake. I just said right now that.
Can you let me finish, please?
Okay.
Thank you. I campaigned for Barack Obama for 2 campaigns. I am an immigrant in this country, born in Honduras. I am not a United States citizen. And Hispanic and Latino issues are not my issues. I have black issues. I kind of understood what the sister's point was about when it comes to our political prisoners. So I have 2 questions. One of my questions is the argument you said that we often criticize instead of taking action. Everybody's open is subject to criticism when you are either a leader or you don't have to be a leader. You're subject to criticism regardless of anything. And as a man or a woman, you should be able to accept those things and try to make them better, just like Malcolm Garvey and so many of our other Pan-African leaders have done or faced, right? So, when it came to Asada Shakur, who is one of our sisters in Cuba, we have a $2 billion,
$2 million.
$2 million bounty for her head, ready to kill her, and they want her dead or alive in this country. So I know that when I became privy to that information, I did see an online petition that was put together, and everyone was coming to the system's defense, saying that we should go ahead and address that. Now, we can get a turkey to be pardoned, but we can't get a political prisoner to be pardoned. So you're telling me that a turkey is okay to be pardoned even though he didn't ask to be pardoned, but then we don't get that for our sisters or our Muammar Abu-Jamal who is sitting right now in prison. That's my first question. My second, maybe you want to adjust that statement, not more of a question. And second, to the brother Blake, is that correct?
Blake.
No,
This is
Milton.
new brother Milton. Does the Obama administration have anything to do with the assassination of Muammar Gaddafi? Because I know that when I was watching the Lie Machine, which is media, they're going to present the situation more favorable to them. When I saw that on TV, I know the Obama administration, as well as every media outlet, demonized the character of Muammar Gaddafi, saying that he had slaves, and CNN, Anderson Cooper came up with all these scenarios. So,
Ask the question.
I apologize. So those are the 2 questions that I wanted to bring up. Again, I just wanted to give a scenario before he answered.
Right, of course. The answer is yes. When you attack a country and you drop missiles and bombs for months, trying to get rid of the leader, yes, of course, you're responsible for
So the Obama
for his
administration has something to do
assassination,
with
without a
that.
doubt. You know,
Okay.
the Obama administration, the British administration, the French administration. Now, I go back to your point, though, in terms of the president has accomplished things that he needs to be credited for.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're a blanket supporter or opponent of the president. It's not. It never should be like that.
Right.
And I think there are many black folks also who hold back against criticizing the president, you know, simply because he's already facing a lot of grief from the white racist Republican establishment, and they think, okay, so therefore, you know, we can't tell him anything more. That's wrong at the same time, because he needs to be told, with enough pressure, there's some things that he can do. Put enough pressure on the issue of these white cops, you know, killing young black men. Put enough pressure that whether the president wants to act on it or not, he has no choice. The same thing when it comes to the condition of political prisoners. We've seen a lot of activity against brutal white cops, but I don't think we've seen similar campaign toward political prisoners. And that's the point I was trying to make.
But the only time his work should be addressed is when he have addressed and executed an agenda for the black nation. Other than that, every other issue that he addressed has not dealt with us.
Sister, let's not forget that he is at the same time still president of an empire.
Right.
And some people say
But black
a
people
very,
have issues.
a very,
Black men
a
are in
very
prison
brutal
today.
corporate empire.
But
Let's
black
not
men are in
forget
prison
that.
today.
We're not debating that.
And unemployment rates in our community.
Sister, I said that in my presentation. I said unemployment does not change in 50 years.
But when you have to give credit, give the proper credit, not the ones that sounds good.
Could I respond to
Go
the
ahead.
question you asked me? When I say that we need to mobilize, I'm thinking about when I was a student, we had Huey Newton in jail. And there was nowhere you can go in this country without seeing a sign that say free Huey. T-shirts, buttons. It was massive mobilization, and we were able to free the brother. The same with Angela Davis. When I was a young man, we fought like hell and mobilized to get Angela Davis free. And I'm saying that kind of mass mobilization is absent today. And it makes a difference when people see a community that's strong and a community that's weak. And we know, we're all very knowledgeable here, but how many young people have we talked to outside of this room? How many colleges have we gone to? How many community centers have we gone to? That's what we did back in the 60s. We went everywhere to talk about free political prisoners. Now we have people who are very knowledgeable and very active, but it's not a mass movement. And when you don't have a mass movement, you don't have the same power.
And if we wait for the president to do it by himself, it will never happen. So
Time.
we have to.
We used up about 6 of those 9 minutes. We're going to extend things even though we don't want to do that. So let me let the next question. Yes, brother.
Thank you very much.
Step up, Mike.
Everybody on that line is going to get a chance to ask the question.
Just want to commend both of you from the outset for the contributions you made today, and I'm sure you educated all of us on a lot of the finer points that we probably did not know. Just want to ask each of you a question. To Brother Milton, want to ask you that it seemed to me that one of the leading Pan-Africanists in the world was Muammar Gadaffi. Right. And just want to know who are the leading Pan-Africanists in Africa as we speak, and what was their position relative to what happened to someone who was just willing to give the funding and just promote all the things that we consider Pan-Africanism.
Good question.
And then should I just say the other question to Professor Blake?
Go ahead.
And to you, Professor Blake, just want to ask you relative to President Obama, given that the way he seemed to have glee and was kind of boastful when he gave that order to have that young man killed from Somalia on the boat. Just want to say that where's that dexterity and enthusiasm relative to now that we see the Ferguson Police Department rife with racism and exploitation, racketeering, exploitation, with just everything you can imagine, something that was from our deep past 50, 60 years ago is going on with just 2 years of research. They just went back 2 years. Just want to know, why wouldn't that same enthusiasm be utilized to correct what's going on in Ferguson?
Okay. You ask a very interesting question, because many of those leaders were very happy and willing to take the billions of dollars that he sent to the other African countries. But when it came down to the line, only one of them really showed up, Zuma, who flew to Libya. And look at the irony. This is the president of an African country, Jacob Zuma, having to ask NATO permission to fly from South Africa to Libya because they had established a no-fly zone. Meaning, if he didn't get permission, presumably the president of South Africa could have his plane shot down. So he had to get permission, and then he flies to Libya twice to negotiate a ceasefire and a new political arrangement. And he actually accomplished that. He said, listen, basically he said they are determined to kill you, and they will kill you. Sign a ceasefire, have elections. Let anybody run freely. Let it be supervised by the international community. He agreed to that. And the so-called insurgents also agreed. But then France contacted the leaders of the so-called leaders of the insurgency and said, no, why are you doing that when we're going to get rid of him on your behalf? That's what went down. So that shows you it was not even an internal Libyan power struggle.
This was in plain sight.
Absolutely. The shots were being called from outside. They verbally committed to the agreement, but then when their French masters told them no, that's not part of the deal. And that's why they went all the way, hoping to benefit from the oil. Now the country is in absolute chaos. Oil production is almost shut down. You have two competing governments, one in Tobruk and one in Tripoli, and a bunch of militias controlling areas all over the country. And that's the democracy that we're supposed to introduce in Libya. But going back to your point, yes, he was badly let down by many African leaders who were not willing to put their necks on the line when it came down to it. But it shows you also a vulnerability that the continent is exposed to. Because yesterday, Gadaffi, who knows which one of them is going to be tomorrow when they stop serving the Western interests. Right?
And could you just identify some Pan-Africanists, not the leading ones?
There are none. And in my book, I think the only remaining one may be Mugabe in Zimbabwe. And obviously, he's 91. But because they send you clear signals of what will happen to you if you decide to become like a Lumumba, a Sankara, and Nkrumah, emerging people like Steve Biko in South Africa, Samora Machel, you know. So I think that discourages a lot of Pan-Africans from coming forward.
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, I think that your question makes me realize even more that we're, as a people, in trouble. And that's because Obama speaks to black leaders. And I don't get the feeling that the urgency in which you're talking about, Ferguson, etc., is being told to Obama by black leaders. And if black leaders are not bringing up the fire and talking to him, I'm talking about leaders in Congress, leaders in the Senate, even civil rights leaders. They're sitting across the table having breakfast with Obama, and they're not telling him about the urgency of what you need to do about Ferguson. He doesn't feel that urgency. He has a whole lot of pressure coming from him. And if he don't have to deal with the pressure of that, he's not going to do it. He's a political leader.
Yeah, but if I could interject, okay, no, I'm sorry.
I gotta stop because we have two more people that want to ask questions, and they won't get a chance to ask questions.
Just want to say that real quick, and I'm sorry about it, that in this particular case, the evidence is there. Without even a vigorous investigation, what the DOJ did, the evidence is there, so you can respond.
Right.
In this country,
And agitate them. You got to, just because the evidence is
not only agitation, but fire.
Yeah.
In this country, the establishment reacts to fire.
Absolutely.
It reacted because they saw potential fire.
Okay, I'm
and more fire
sorry, you brothers, you can't ask questions.
in Ferguson.
They can't ask.
okay. I'm being quiet.
I was giving them the wink as I was saying that to them. Go ahead. Next, man.
Step out, please. Step out.
I want you to step away the camera.
I'll step in. On my, both of y'all work, I cherish this for the rest of my life. I'm going to tell my kids that, I'm in grace of president of great elders, great leaders.
Thank you, sir.
But to answer everybody's question, I think, we all address this. Obama, him being mixed, was raised by what did you say, the status quo. People didn't know that he was on other countries and he was learning different languages. The man is brilliant. He also was part of the CIA and the British intelligence. That's what they don't tell you. They was teaching him to be an infiltrator, a lot of organizations, the Weather Underground. Everybody knows what the Underground is. They was a militant back in the early 70s, and they did malicious stuff with the banks, and they felt that was responding to corruption. He also infiltrated like Chicago, like the Black Panthers of Chicago. So it's like a lot of things that we don't take into consideration. The Harvard Law School, which is part of the Skull and Bones secret organization. I'm just saying that in a nutshell, Obama is I wouldn't say the face of capitalism, but he was selected before he was elected. He was groomed to be what he is. Maybe not in so much in a positive way of total black liberation, but to be a positive, like, after Martin Luther King, the king and the prince died, we had no more strong body besides you know, of a certain few, you know, rest in peace.
All right,
Kwame Ture, but my whole point is that Obama is the face of hope, but he also is the flip side of the coin. And for the Omar Gadaffi question, I would say that Omar Gadaffi, the complexity of his greatness, it's not going to really get checked, because you're not going to see a movie about Omar Gaddafi, but you will see a movie about Barack Obama. So now a lot of people are going to know this man. This man was viewed by multimedia as probably like Saddam and Bin Laden, like to his people. So this is what I'm saying, that a lot of information is not getting out there. So how can we as black people, especially in this room, can get out the greatness of the flip side of the coin of both men?
Straight ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your question.
Okay. Well, things you said about Obama and the CIA and all that. I mean, I don't know that at all.
Yeah.
I mean, and as
Thank you.
a person in journalism, I prefer to do my reporting. I've never come across that kind of reporting.
Yeah, really.
But to the bigger point, though, to what extent are we all the face of capitalism in this country? I mean, that we can't debate that. We live within a very capitalistic society, and that's how we operate. And you know, if you're going to run as an establishment candidate, you know, you raise funds the way everybody else does, and you do all the other things that the establishment politicians do in order to get elected.
Yes.
Now, if you're saying maybe one day in the future there will be a black leader who will actually be able to mobilize enough people for a revolution in this country, that's a totally different story altogether. Now, in terms of Gaddafi, I agree with you. So long as we don't control our own media, somebody else is going to be writing the story. It's always been that way, and it's going to be like that for a long time. But that's probably some of the things that we discuss on a regular basis with Dr. Mack and Seymour Taft. With the internet environment, we can try to create other alternative media. The editorials that we were writing, it was picked up by more than 200 other websites. So if we didn't even have an environment where there was a website, like years ago, you only had to have a radio station or a newspaper, we would not have been able to even get that word around. And obviously somebody didn't want us to get that word around by taking control of our websites.
I'd just like to simply say that the game is not won until the fourth quarter. Obama's not finished yet. And remember, when he first started, he said things like there's no red state, no blue state, it's just the United States. I think he kind of like understand that there are red states and there are blue states, and we're not just one United States. He's learning in the job, and I think he can do much better. I think he could be more effective, but like he's learning, and you know, like right now he's using his executive power to do things that he should have done earlier, and that's in immigration, you know, in healthcare, etc. I believe that we can't really assess him totally until the game is over. You know, you can be in the fourth quarter and be 27 points behind and then catch up. And you can be in the fourth quarter and be 27 points ahead and lose. The point is that the game is not over until the fourth quarter. And he's just got 2 more years to go.
Thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say, in terms of the point, which is, you know, I hear this redundantly in terms of the psychological value of a Barack Obama to African American children, and probably to children in general, to see an African American in the highest position of power in the United States, at least formally speaking. Where I, and respectfully differ, is that the question, I think, needs to also be raised, that if that person who we say is a psychological value to that black child, if that new president is the new face of, quote unquote, endorsing the program, the agenda of white supremacy, imperialism, the new form of colonialism, the recolonization of Africa, where he actually was complicit and collaborated with these governments that you delineated in the assassination of someone who was a friend of African people, do we say that person now has great psychological value? If this person is not audacious or bold enough to stand on his on certain principles and say, I want to reestablish relationship with the sovereign government of Cuba, but Assad Shakur is off the table. So I'm saying that it's not just about having a black face in a high place. It's not just about black visibility. It's about black accountability. And I think we have to move beyond. It is truly unequivocally historical. I did not think I would see it, but beyond the emotionalism and the, you know, the excitement, we have to move beyond, I think, superficialities and cosmetics and look at the substance. What does he really stand for? Is he about really, you know, liberation? Or is it really about something else? Whose agenda does he really represent? And in conclusion, because I know we're extended in time, even though we say he's for everybody, but that doesn't mean that you exclude a constituency as important as the African American community. Just yesterday, he spoke in, Selma, and he talked about nonviolent ways of handling situation. He hasn't even taken that stand in terms of saying, can we try to resolve or reconcile this issue with Libya in a nonviolent way initially? So we have to look at these contradictions and not be blinded by the cataracts of emotionalism because of the fact that he's black. It's not just about the man, it's the plan, it's not the rap, it's the man. I just don't want to be in the, I'm going to listen, I'm listening.
Well, in terms of Libya, you know, I have no argument with that, as you've heard from my presentation. I think, you know, we are probably monitored on a regular basis because we took that position very early to be very critical against the war and saying it was absolutely wrong. We predicted what would happen. Gadaffi himself said it. I remember he was interviewed by Christian Amanpour, and he said, basically, you guys really think I'm bad? Wait till the folks that you're supporting come into power. They're going to be worse than Al-Qaeda. And Christian Amanpour was sitting there sort of like giggling and laughing at, what are you talking about? Giving the impression that this guy is really crazy and making a a statement that's just for his own benefit. Of course, he turned out to be absolutely 100% right. Now, I would like to ask you a question too. You voted for the president the first time?
No, sir.
Okay, so in
Step
light
out.
of his presidency,
Step up.
would you prefer that we had never even had a black president?
Oh, you know, in fact, let me just rectify what I said.
Just quickly, my
Oh,
question.
okay, no, I did vote the first time, but not the second
Okay,
time.
you voted the first time. So you obviously wanted him to be president.
I thought that it was a potential
Yes or
historical
no? You
moment.
wanted him to be president.
Actually, I would not. I would
Okay,
have
let
to
me
say-
ask you directly
Yes,
and
sir.
answer this question. Would you prefer that we never had a black president?
Absolutely not, because I think there's lessons to learn from his presidency.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, let me just answer your question
Can
in
I
terms of the psychological.
Can I ask
value.
one question?
I'm glad you said you're not, you're not playing that down. But I also believe when I say that the 9-year-old that is benefiting from that psychological value, I believe that as he grows up, he won't necessarily be the same kind of president that Obama is. You know, people can analyze, people, you know, can scrutinize, they can come up with the same analysis that you have. But you have to, it's hard work. You have to teach our children.
That's
You know,
right.
you got a black person in the White House. Okay, so now what does that mean to you? What is his policies? How does he affect you? How does he benefit you? How does he benefit our people? You know, it's an educational process that's got to be ongoing. The fact of the matter is, you're telling your son or your daughter, you can be president too.
Right. And
That's right.
Okay, I can't.
That's right.
I gotta reset this.
Matt, can I just one question? Real quick, real quick.
Okay, hold
2
on 1
seconds.
second. Hold on 1 second. I got to get you out of here by a certain time, so I'm sorry, I'm now with another part of the program. Probably informally downstairs, you know, you have a few minutes where you all can talk, all right, and ask questions. You can ask a question
It's not a
downstairs.
question though, it's just a statement.
Okay, you can make a statement downstairs also.
I
Brothers
love
and
all the way
sisters,
over here.
brothers and sisters, I'm gonna ask Sister Yah if we're gonna close out. We have Brother Donnie and Sister Yah. If you just kind of take 2 minutes to put us out of here in unity. Before she comes up, if she can you do that?
Put us out of here.
Yeah, give us a dismissal statement to have us go out and do something that we should be doing. All right, listen, brothers and sisters, I want you to please give a hand for both of our people. I want to explain something to you. The people who have to debate, they have to take the position we give them. It doesn't mean that is their that they support that position that they had to do. Every time somebody doesn't step up to take a position, I have to debate it. So I had to debate, that's right, I had to debate against Harriet Tubman. That's what I had to do here. And I want to thank both Brother Milton and Brother Blake for doing a great job. You know, hold on a second. Y'all are being very disrespectful while I'm talking to people.
I apologize.
All right? Hold it. You got an agenda, I got a collective agenda. You got an individual agenda, okay? So take your pictures, but be unobtrusive.
No, I'm videotaping you.
Whatever it is, I'm asking you, be unobtrusive. What I was saying is that understand the difficult job they had. I think that to do it without rancor, to just give us some more information, and then to allow people to ask them questions from the audience. Didn't everybody get to say what they wanted to say? Was anybody who didn't get to say what they wanted to say? Did you get to say what you wanted to say? Okay, so I think that's a beautiful thing. Please come back next week. We have a debate on Cosby. Is Bill Cosby being lynched? Yes or no? I'm going to be arguing that he is, and Sister Mary Alice Miller is going to be answering that he is not. It's going to be a vigorous debate in which you'll get information, I believe, from both sides. So at this point, thank you all. Thank you, speakers. Don't leave before I speak to you both. And then I'm going to ask you, Sister Yah and Brother Donnie Whitehead, to come up and dismiss us in unity.
Is that every single one of you research the political prisoners that we have. We still have 14 Black Panthers. Not only do I want you to research it, but I want you to think about what you can do individually to help free them, and grab a child and teach them about that political prisoner.
Thank you. Hey, Brother Don.
What I would like to say is this, that in periods, every period of history have a demand of that period. And back in 2007, when we supported Barack Obama to be president, we was creating history. Now, in 2015, we stand in the Clarke House, we're critiquing history.
Right.
But we need to know the difference between creating and critiquing. The democracy itself have a demand on the people. It requires social movements. Whether we like it or not, it's not that important. It requires social movements. It requires people engagement. In any great period of history, from 1860 to 1890 to 1930 to 1960, they had great social movement with great committed leadership. You can't just organize in the street and do things without leadership. You got to have a sense of philosophy that drives the movement. If you want the country to function properly, you have to engage in the process, whether we like it or not. I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Brothers and sisters, support the vendors downstairs. Have conversation downstairs, at least 15, 20 minutes. At the end of that 20 minutes,